Hey, you blink, I'll cut your eyelids off. Don't you blink. I got you. Let's go.
And welcome back, everybody, to another edition here of the Men of Steel podcast. It was another prime time edition right here, as I've been just some hours crazily here, and been packed the last few weeks. But right now, get ready to pick up right now. Some interesting takes right now coming up as we get closer to the NFL draft, which is a little over 2 weeks away from tomorrow, where we'll be in Cleveland. Still a lot of debate right now about who the Steelers should be able to be going with their top 100 picks, more particularly the first round. They have not drafted a running back in the first round since 2008, Rashad Mendenhall right there. And not that, too, believe it or not, in the history since Kevin Colbert's been the GM, there has never been an offensive tackle taken with their first round selection right there. Will that come to a change this year? Last time I drafted an offensive lineman was, of course, David DeCastro, guard, back in 2012, where he was a 6-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All-Pro for the Steelers right there. He seems to be continuing to be a solid foundational piece. And you really start to wonder right now, are they going to probably avoid that right now this year? I mean, Mark Kaboly seems to look at, when you look at the history of the draft under a guy like Kevin Colbert, and when you look at everything that this organization has always prided itself on, where it's being a family culture or just filling out depth needs for this organization. I mean, you look at Kevin Colbert's pedigree here, what he's been able to pull off. And here are the offensive linemen that he was drafted with his first pick. Remember, not getting an offensive tackle with the first round, but he has had some guards and some centers. Very first one you have to look back to was Kendall Simmons out of Auburn, 2-time Super Bowl champion, never made any Pro Bowls. But then you also had a few years later, back in 2010, you also had center Marquise Pouncey, tied with the most Pro Bowls, or second most Pro Bowls as a Steeler right now with 9. And then last but not least, David DeCastro right there. So you look at, how the Steelers are positioned right now. And you take a look at their positioning going into this year's draft. Remember, they're going to have 8 total picks. They're going to have at least 24th with their first round selection. 55th overall at round number 2. Round number 3 will be the last of their top 100 picks. They'll be 87th. Then following from that, they'll have 2 fourth-round picks, 128th and 140th. 140th overall will be their compensatory selection. And they'll have a 6th and 2 7th-round picks at 216th, 245th, and 254th overall right now. Remember, the Steelers will be starting 24th this season as we look at it and see what they'll be able to do as far as everything goes. But, yeah, I'm really just excited to see what this comes down to right now. And you look at it, just all the years that Kevin Colbert has been the GM, how he's been able to mastercraft a very solid Steeler foundation, just basically. When you look at it and what he's been able to do over all the years now. So let's find out what they got right now coming into this. I like to think right now it has to be, a running back. I think why not? A lot of talk has been Najee Harris out of Alabama. We keep hearing that name throughout the offseason, that the Steelers may want to be able to pick up and swing. But remember, he's also, according to Brian Diarlo, who writes for CBS, has also said, too, that the Bills and Dolphins have also met with this guy, whether from Zoom sessions or as pro day. And you look at it right there, too. At the end of the day, too, I think a guy like Harris right now, I think he definitely brings you a lot of power running more than anything. He's had comparisons to a guy like Derrick Henry of the Titans, but he does plan working out this summer with Adrian Peterson, who he feels in his mind is a top 3 running back all time. And he's even said that Saquon Barkley is the best running back in the game today. You know what? I really can't argue with that too much. I know Saquon Barkley's had his hiccup last year with a season-ending injury versus Chicago Bears in week number 2, I believe it was. And you look at the things that have been going on here. And like I said, too, I mean, you look at what James Conner has tried to do. And to be honest, he's been a one-hit wonder so far. I mean, he has never came anywhere close to the production that you saw in 2018 and as a backup from time to time to Le'Veon Bell in his rookie year. Very tough, mental-minded kid. But as far as like producing you consistent results that would stand off, I mean, it's just unforgivable to be having the running game ranked towards the bottom for the last couple of years. That needs to stop. And don't get me wrong, I would not be dissatisfied if they get an offensive tackle. But then again, too, I mean, they still are feeling like the loss of a guy like Bud Dupree. I was actually on a fan forum a couple weeks ago. I had the pleasure of speaking to Mr. Art Rooney II and asking him like who he felt like was their biggest loss this offseason. And no question, the name that definitely popped to mind was Bud Dupree. So I still have it. I would not be surprised if the Steelers are able to get an edge rusher with their first pick. I mean, last year, back in 2020, when you look at it, it's been the first time since 2012 where the Steelers have selected anyone opposite of the defensive side of the ball. Remember, they had a second-round pick last year, and their pick was Chase Claypool, which was their first pick of the draft. And, I mean, that's another thing that could be filled up, too, once again. I mean, do not be surprised if we see some receivers come on here. I really doubt Chase Claypool right now is going to serve some significant punishment with his incident. But I think you still got to keep an eye on this guy right now. Make sure he's keeping himself away from any harm, staying responsible on and off the field. And, of course, I mean, when you truly look at it right now, yeah, you have to be very careful in these situations. Want to make sure there's less eyeballs on you and other kind of like negative press. I still think he's a pretty solid receiver who has the potential to continue to get great, but we've also seen a little bit of some attitude, some chippiness from him, where it's being sore from being knocked out by the Browns in the playoffs. And right now, just hopefully this ain't no carryover where there's going to be a lot of negative attention away from the team. Okay, if you guys want to follow me on social media, definitely do so. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Prodigy Richey for the Men of Steel podcast on Twitter. It is at Men of Steel CJR, at Men of Steel Nation on Instagram. Like I said, we're just getting started right now. We're kicking off the opening drive right now, taking a look at some running backs, offensive tackles, and possibly some edge rushers, outside linebackers, or maybe some inside linebackers. I know I talked about outside linebackers not too long ago, but don't take a look at right now at the running backs right now. I mean, a lot of names we continue to hear. Obviously, Najee Harris of Alabama right now. I mean, that seems to be a big one right now. Here's another one that seems to be popping up too. He's a third, fourth round pick right now too, and which might benefit the Steelers take this guy a little bit later. Is Javonte Williams right now of North Carolina from the ACC conference right now. This guy right here, he's rushed for a career high of 1,140 yards in his junior year, his third and final season with North Carolina. And has had a career high in scrimmage yards, too, with 1,445 yards that season, 305 yards being caught for the air, and had 22 total touchdowns through that year. 19 rushing touchdowns and 3 receiving touchdowns right here. And I mean, this might be a guy who they might be willing to take right here, might be able to take a look at. And I'd be really interested to see what would be like the feel on this guy right here. I mean, Travis Etienne right now is another one too. We've been hearing about as well, who is out of Clemson now. And the only thing is with him, I mean, he's projected to go like at least within the first 2 rounds. I mean, a lot of these running backs right now too. So the Steelers may have some wiggle room. It may not be a necessary need to have right away to kick off. I think they could definitely keep their poker face on, and they could wait around a little bit, see who's available. Some of the other names too that Mark Kaboly looks at that seems to fit the Steelers' bill a little bit too. When we truly look at it going into this year's draft, I mean, running backs, tackles, aside from the 2 guys I mentioned, or the 3 guys I mentioned, let's look at tackles right now. Tevin Jenkins, Jalen Mayfield, Samuel Cosme, Christian Darrisaw, or Alex Leatherwood. Now, Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech is a is a good athlete with quickness and agility on the edge. Now, of course, some people who looked at this guy, if he's able to pan out in the NFL, he could be a Russell Okung type of tackle. Now, that'd be something right there. I mean, a guy right there, I think if anything, when you're looking at offensive tackle for this team, you're looking for guys that could open up in the run game. I'm not really too concerned right now about still getting more protection for the quarterback. I think that will continue to rank right up there. It's obviously going to be a little bit more difficult without Marquise Pouncey for the first time and forever for Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, that's definitely going to be an interesting dynamic. I mean, not that they haven't got used to this rehearsal before. I mean, on 2 separate occasions where he was lost for the entire season back in 2013 opener against the Tennessee Titans, and then back in an exhibition game in 2015 against Green Bay Packers. Now, one of those years they did make the playoffs. They didn't make it in 2013. They had a nice streak towards the end right there. But still, I feel like right now, I mean, when you got a guy like J.C. Hassenauer right now who signed for a few years, I mean, how much can they really depend on this guy right now? I mean, they kind of pretty much filled out a depth need right now. They got about a little over $10.4 million in cap space as it stands, according to Over the Cap, with all the transactions they've been making. I mean, for everything. And right now, I mean, we're going to get to one player later on. One guy on the defense will be signed to like a nice deal. I mean, when you look at it, and throughout everything, listen, there's going to be a lot of business moves here throughout this. I definitely do feel like the Steelers right now are in pretty decent shape right now, considering how they started off. And I really feel like right now they got a decent team that could still contend. Not so sure about a Super Bowl, but I think they definitely got someone that could keep them relevancy here. I mean, at the end of the day. And we'll see how that continues to work out here for this team. I mean, I just think they just did a phenomenal job right now with everything they had to put up right now throughout everything. Let's see. I mean, because you got right now J.C. Hassenauer. He signed through this year a 1-year contract with the Steelers. Back in 2019. Yeah, and see how he continues to prove himself right now. Yeah, so about a year. So right now, I mean, don't be surprised too. They got a center too. I mean, with their early picks. Let's stick in some of these names right now too. Let's see. Let's go another one right now on here. Jalen Mayfield out of Michigan. Now this is another interesting guy right here. Strength to control, turn, and manipulate defenders at the point of attack. Mayfield is quick to the second level and able to kick out to the perimeter right here. Now, I mean, that would be an interesting pick right now. Michigan. I mean, another guy who could be able to control defenders right here. I would definitely like to see like how he would do. I mean, in this scheme right now, how he would be able to fit. Like I said, and I think back to like Stan Savage too. When I had him on my show, uh, like well over a year ago, he mentioned that he would have like to have someone that can knock some people around, and I think that's definitely very true in this case. We already know what the run game needs to work on and how decent this offensive line is protecting the quarterback. But as far as pushing guys around the defense, not only protecting the quarterback and preventing tackles, you need to restore the attitude with this team as we take a look at it. And we'll find out how that continues to work itself out. I mean, with everything going on. And don't forget, too, I mean, also another guy, too, that the Steelers just signed right now. I mean, right now when we look at it with the Steelers too, as they were able to sign former Bears Rashad Coward right now. Rashad Coward seems to be like another interesting guy here who's coming over to this team. Right tackle. He signed a 1-year tender as an exclusive rights free agent with the Chicago Bears back in 2019. Right now, he is signed for a 1-year, $900,000 contract, it looks like. And we'll be having a salary cap charge of $850,000, $990,000, excuse me, base salary for this season. So let's see how he's able to do right here. I mean, Rashad Coward, he's definitely an issue one, too. I mean, this guy who's in his fourth year draft, who went undrafted, excuse me, out of Old Dominion right here. And for the most part, I mean, the last 2 years, I mean, he started he was available for a big chunk of games right there. 2019, he started 10 out of 13 games. I mean, was his career high right there. Played as a guard for most of his career. I mean, you should see how he's able to make that transition to tackle right here and what he's capable of doing here. I mean, this guy right now, I think it's definitely very great depth at the end of the day, but we'll see. Our guy we also got too, as we look at right now, we're looking at outside a guy who would be a dual threat at linebacker is Xavier Collins out of Tulsa. Kaboly notes that he is big, fast, and versatile and could be slotted in at inside or outside linebacker depending on need. The Steelers need both. Collins, according to Kaboly, posted a 35-inch vertical jump and a 4.67 4-yard dash time at his pro day. Now, the thing is, too, when you look at it right now, I mean, Robert Splain, I think, definitely seems to be an interesting one right now, too. I mean, bringing a guy in like that, are they sending any type of message to a guy like Robert Splain? I mean, how much faith they have in this guy? Because don't forget, I mean, Splain was huge for a key stretch. And I think he got hurt around the time against the Washington football team, I want to say, is when he slowly was out of the picture and then come back onto the playoffs. I mean, Splain was a guy who filled in nicely for Devin Bush right there. I mean, a lot of people are going to think definitely as goal line stance against the Tennessee Titans back in week 6. But Splain, I mean, for a while, I mean, he was doing real good. I mean, playing with heart, some decent coverage. It was able to make some solid tackles right there, including when you had a guy like Avery Williamson on this team right now. And which, by the way, right now, I definitely interested in seeing how he would continue to stay along on this team. I mean, right now. And I right now, I mean, inside linebacker, I think they're definitely paying attention to the fact that if they have another injury, what's going to happen? I mean, he's no longer in the Steelers for right now as we know it. But yeah, I mean, is it going to be something where they have to be a little reconciled with? So right now, I'm looking at it right now, and then you also got another guy too. The Steelers also met with inside linebacker Nick Bolton out of Missouri. Zoom session had terrific range athleticism, but his lack of size could be concerning. However, Vince Williams wasn't much more than 240 pounds in his final year, and Bush is one of the smallest linebackers in the league and went F overall. When you look at, I mean, the majority of Mike Tomlin's career here as head coach of the Steelers, I mean, it's interesting to know, I mean, with the Steelers team, I mean, when you really truly piece together here, and where they've been able to make some decent drafts here and stuff for all the years. I mean, it's just been plain and simple here. I mean, you had like a 10 out. I mean, 10 picks starting at least with defensive players. I mean, for this team. I mean, a lot of the Pro Bowls that have been drafted, I mean, out of the Steelers have been linebackers. So I would not be surprised if I see the Steelers get a linebacker with their first pick. I mean, when you truly think about it right now, I mean, they've been having a lot more Pro Bowlers with linebackers. And more of the successful ones that come to mind, I think it's definitely like a guy like Lawrence Timmons right here, Lamar Woodley, TJ Watt, Ryan Shazier, another big what if right now if he didn't have the spinal contusion, which shortened his career. I just feel right now, I mean, maybe you can sell the idea that when you got a guy like Matt Canada's offense going into this year, how much him selling his style to the rest of the team, where they may just once again just draft a defense position where the running back could wait. I think another guy too you also have to take a look at right now too. I mean, some positions as tight ends, but we'll get into that on the next podcast as we're taking a look at everything right now. And right now, I mean, the off season definitely going. I mean, when I look at analysis wise, I at least give it a C plus right now. I mean, obviously, you had to lose a lot of key talent. I mean, with the salary cap drop being as significant as it was, but at the end of the day, too, I mean, just trying to get this thing back. I mean, how huge was it for guys like Marquise Pouncey, Vance McDonald retiring to make this all work? Yeah, it was a bloodbath. I mean, for in some parts, but at the same time, too, I also like to think this offseason, when you look at everything that they're, first of all, it seemed like a cakewalk at times. I mean, let's not forget, too, a guy like Kevin Colbert, I mean, was almost inconceivably was like about moving on from this club, a report, rumor, about possibly going to the Lions. Imagine how things would have gone if that were to go down. If he went to the Detroit Lions, he moved on from the Steelers. I tell you what, the Steelers' positioning for this offseason would have definitely been a lot more troublesome if you ask me. I mean, say what you will, and I've been one of the biggest critics on this team right now, and where I just get frustrated with, is that, you have a great coach and a guy like Mike Tomlin who's keeping it in it year after year, which is fine. But the biggest issue I continue to have, where does it translate into the playoffs? I mean, the last 3 times, they've been averaging 43 points a game. And defensively, Mike Tomlin is definitely assisting and having a lot of his influence, his message being passed on to his coordinators, or even Mike Tomlin himself calling the plays. I really do believe right now where Mike Tomlin, he's a great coach. I mean, this past decade, let's be honest, he has been nothing short of like maybe a Tony Dungy or maybe like a Marvin Lewis. And not Marvin Lewis, I'm not talking about where he's lost control of the team like character flaw-wise. We obviously see what he had to put up with in former guys like Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell. But Mike Tomlin at the end of the day, too, I mean, let's not fool ourselves, too. This guy right here, listen, players got to play, got to take care of the ball better, and they have not been getting off to great starts in playoff games. And just something just does not seem to be adding up right when you're getting smacked around. They have not been the same defense since they beat the Chiefs, which was their last playoff win 4 years ago. It just seems like it's just, it's like Peyton Manning being great in the regular season, but you seem to be choking in the playoffs. And that's my biggest concern I have with this team. I'm not saying or not advocating for this guy to get fired. That's not what I'm talking about. But I think you do have to ask yourself, too, when you keep saying the same old speech and pattern, the standard is the standard, where are you holding that to? That's my take right now. Listen, I think Tomlin's going to be a great coach for a while. But at some point, you also got to wonder, too, his 15th season right now, which Bill Cowher lasted. I mean, he chose to move on from the Steelers on his own terms due to some family issues with his wife at the time, who passed away a few years later. I mean, is there starting to be some patience that's getting a little testy right now? But we'll find out on that. Let's go ahead and get into some fair foul topics right now. Fair or foul? Should the Steelers select a running back with their first round 24th overall pick? I'm going to say fair on that one. I think you have to at this point. You need to go back to running the football, and not only running the football, but catching out of the backfield. That's been part of the Steelers' MO for a long time over the years, especially for being a consistent playoff and Super Bowl team. You just cannot allow your quarterback to be constantly throwing close to or over 50 times a game, all because you have a frustrated offensive line right now, not creating openings. But not only that, running backs running with an attitude. You need to find a way to reestablish that somehow, because if that continues to flop right now, I mean, I think you go either way with a tackle or running back, but I think a running back is overdue right now. You cannot continue to survive in this league being last in rushing. And then when it comes time for the playoffs, you have no running game to show for it. That's not going to work. And I think James Conner, I think he did a pretty decent job in that playoff loss to the Browns. I really do. I mean, you had a lot of opportunities right there. I mean, right now, to at least not be in the hole if they were a 28-0 lead. Of course, you're going to pass for a lot more passing attempts in that game. You're trying to get quick strikes. So I'm looking at. I'm gonna just say screw it. Let's go with Najee Harris. I take him with that first pick. I'll take the risk. I think he's worth the gamble. I don't think you should be wondering what is right now. I think, he's that guy right now, and who has a little bit of Derrick Henry comparisons in him. And plus, working out a guy with Adrian Pearson, I think you need to take him if he's available. You go with Najee Harris first pick. Fair foul topic number 2. Releasing right cornerback Steven Nelson was in the best interest of the Steelers going forward. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to say yes. I mean, he just flat out said it best that, he was that it was a business decision. I mean, he was shocked that they promised Cam Sutton something, meaning they would let me go because they can't keep me at a higher number. Nobody ever called me and told me that, as he sent a direct message to Dale Lally. He also spoke with Jim Miller and Pat Kirwin on their Sirius XM show that he was seeking an extension with the Steelers that would have brought his 2021 cap hit down and kept him in Pittsburgh, but the team was not interested in going that route. He said that I felt, and I also, my extension, felt that we were due to an extension due to the fact that I had outplayed my current contract for the past 2 years. Nelson turned Pat Curran and Jim Miller on the show. He also goes on to say, Nelson and Hayden have definitely, without question, have been like the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks on this team with Mike Hilton. They have both combined for 10 interceptions together in their 2 seasons. I thought he was great for the secondary, but let's be honest, too. Things didn't start turning around until Mika Fitzpatrick came to this team. And I think having Nelson a part of that dynamic right there, just being a defensive back in general, listen, I think he was a great contributor. At the same time, I think I'm going to go bet on a younger Cam Sutton here. I love Steve Nelson. Steve Nelson was an all-around great contributor here. I mean, when you truly look at it right now, my guy who's going to be who's 28 years old, and then you also got Cam Sutton right now, who is 26. Only 2 years difference between him and Nelson. But I think Sutton, for whatever reason, they see a little bit of potential right there. He was drafted by the team in the 3rd round out of Tennessee. Definitely feel like that guy's going to do some wonders for this team. So in the end, it sucks, but I think right call in the end. And fair or foul topic number 3. Should we as Steeler Nation fans be concerned with TJ Watt not getting a contract extension this year or looming into the start of trade cap of next season? I'll say foul for right now, as much as I want to say fair on this one. Art really did say that they're going to try and do everything they can to keep TJ Watt. But again, listen, I mean, they're trying to free up enough money to compensate for their draft class. I mean, how much more are you going to cut right now? I mean, you would think that the Steelers right now, who are about $10.4 million, it would be an indication that they're getting some more money clear to sign to a huge money contract, who's going to be commanding about $25 million a year. So we'll see on that. But other than that, that's going to do it for this edition here of the Metal Steel Podcast. Once again, just sorry again for the absence. Constantly lately, just been going through a lot here, off and there. But definitely feel free to check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Prodigy Richey for the Metal Steel Podcast. You can follow me primarily there on Twitter at Metal Steel CGR and at Metal Steel Nation on Instagram. As I leave you, don't be trolling, be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I gone.